Good afternoon and welcome to the Big Show. The Big Show brought to you by Archie's on Carson Street. Get down to Archie's, the official, it's the official sponsor of the show, and of course also home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday. So get down to Archie's, say hello to Archie when you get there, and of course make sure that you tell him I sent you. Believe it or not, after all of the hype, all of the preseason, discussions, all of the, hypotheticals, after all of that, we are finally going to have real live, actual football on Sunday. We can finally stop talking in hypotheticals. We can finally stop talking about what might happen. We can finally stop speculating about what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. We can finally stop speculating about Broderick Jones. We can finally stop speculating about the defense and whether or not it's going to be back to being elite. We are going to actually have football. And I, for one, can't wait. And I think most of you probably can't wait. So I think that it's going to be really important for these next few days to sort of pay attention, because now everything starts to get real. And when I say real, I mean practice now actually matters. And matters from the standpoint of, if somebody misses practice, well, guess what happens? They aren't going to play. They're not going to play. If someone's banged up on Friday and they're not able to practice, probably means they're not going to play. So it's now actually important, really, really important in so many ways, to make sure that, we pay attention to what is actually happening when it comes to Steelers practices. Because now the games are going to start to take place. Now, all of a sudden, things that happen actually do matter. And so we can stop speculating. We can stop making a big deal because, this guy is holding in, or this guy's holding out, or this guy tweaked his hamstring, because for the most part, what happens in the preseason, and I kind of hate saying it like this, but what happens in the preseason is almost irrelevant, especially with a team like the Steelers, who you kind of knew who was going to be the starters, who was going to make the team, who is not going to make the team, all of that stuff. Guess what? It's one of those things where I would tell you, we probably now can focus in on what is actually happening at practices. And whether or not, the guys that are practicing are the guys that we, know to be the starters. First up on that list, of course, and I guess we'll start to figure this out tomorrow, is Cam Heyward. Cam Heyward, of course, had his little hold in or whatever, okay? And then he came back a little bit and was in practice, and all that, to me, turned into probably a storyline that they didn't want, out there, because Cam Heyward is one of their most high-profile players. Cam Heyward is one of their guys that is sort of a team leader. He's a great ambassador for the Steelers. He's a fan favorite and all that other stuff. And nothing that's happened really in the last, 2 or 3 weeks has helped or whatever endear himself to the fans. And I think that one of the things that's going to happen here now is that people are going to be watching tomorrow to see, is he actually going to practice? Is he actually going to participate? Now, today, Mike Tomlin made it, pretty clear, at least in his mind, it's not even a discussion anymore. And that, Cam Heyward's going to play. He's going to be fine. He's a veteran guy. He doesn't need camp. He doesn't need any, the extra reps and all the other good stuff. And then, he went even to spin it to say, hey, the fact that he didn't practice tells me that, it gave other guys, younger guys, an opportunity to get some reps. I don't know if I buy that this late in the process, but okay, let's go with that. At the end of the day, Cam Heyward is, I would say, likely going to play. In fact, I'll be shocked if it goes the other way and he doesn't play. I know it's a discussion because on his podcast, he was asked, are you going to play? And he said, we'll see. I don't read that much into that. Some people do. I don't. I think he'll play. Well, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he's just one of those guys that I think at this point, he's probably a little frustrated with the whole process. And the other thing is, he's a little frustrated that some of the fans have sort of turned on his brother a little bit. And they basically said, hey, his brother is only on the team because it's his brother, and they're doing a favor and he's not that good and he's a mascot and all the other stuff that we hear people say. So to me, I'm just going to tell you, I think Cam Heyward probably created a little bit, maybe a little bit of his own issues. But for the most part, I think once the games begin, and this is the beauty of it all, once the games begin, first time he makes a big play, fans are going to love him again. They're going to forgive and forget. They're going to move on, and they're going to do what they do. And the same thing with, for instance, T.J. Watt, right? I really believe that's going to be the same thing too. It's going to be one of these situations where they are basically going to say, you know what? With respect to T.J. Watt, he held out. We weren't happy with him. He had a contract, everything else. But guess what? When it comes to him making plays for our team, well, now that he's doing it, we don't, all is forgiven, all is forgotten, all is forgiven. So to me, I just feel like the best part about the game's beginning, honestly, is the fact that it is now going to be all the other stuff doesn't matter. Just does not matter. And because it does not matter, we can start to really focus on making sure that we do a good job of breaking down the games. And that's, I would tell you, is just it's so important because it gets really old after a while, having to, go over and over and over and over and over again, trying to figure out, what the storyline of the day is. So Cam Heyward, to me, I understand why people were upset with him. I understand why people thought that, he was being selfish and all this other stuff. I get all that, but I'm going to tell you, I don't necessarily think it's going to matter once the games start. If he plays well, nobody's going to care. And if he doesn't play well, then probably he's going to hear it, from the crowd. And I think that's where we're at with all of this. He's going to be at a place where he will hear it from the crowd if he doesn't perform. But if he does, and he plays well, and the first time he makes a couple of big plays, guess what? Nobody is going to care. All will be forgotten. all will be forgotten and everything else will go through. And we would basically tell you that it's going to be just a situation of where, it'll be a blip on the radar. Cam wanted more money. And really, it wasn't even about the fact that he wanted more money. I think he wanted just more guaranteed money this year because he understands that if he doesn't play well, it could be his last year to cash in. So, when you're at that stage of your career, that's how you have to really handle things, as if it's the end of your career. So I don't think that he's necessarily being, greedy or any of that stuff. I just think that he's probably looking at him and his agent, and they're saying, why didn't we put a stipulation in that, hey, if I make all pro, I get a $4 or $5 million bonus or whatever. If I play above this contract, I get a bonus. I'm sure the Steelers probably would have, worked with him on something like that, and we wouldn't even be sitting here. So now that they didn't do that, I guess the problem becomes, what? The problem then becomes, well, now this could be my last year. I could be somebody who I'm on my last legs because, I have a okay season and the Steelers decide, what, it's time to move on. And they move on. And so I can't really ever cash in the way I want to this one last time. And that's what he's looking at. That's what he's trying to do. Cash in. His last season, maybe, maybe not. Now, if he plays really well, it doesn't matter because he will cash in. But my point is, it's going to be important now to remember this. Cam Heyward wants to play for the Steelers. And I said last week, one of the things that's interesting is I don't think people fully really give him enough credit for this. He has a lot of leverage. A lot of leverage. From the standpoint of they need him. He knows they need him. He understands that. And that's especially true at the beginning of the year with Derrick Harmon hurt. They don't have a lot of depth on their defensive line. They don't have a lot of options. So if he were to say, tomorrow, if he were to say, listen, I'm holding the line here, and I'm going to hold out, and I'm not going to play this weekend. Guess what? The Steelers would have a problem. They really would, because they don't really have much other opportunities to do much of anything else at that position. It's really interesting in many ways. It is really interesting, to me at least, that they're going to basically have to try and figure out how to resolve some of this contract stuff with him. And they don't like doing it during the season. But he's obviously not happy. And he obviously is not in a situation of where he's ready to talk to the media about it. He's a guy who basically, is saying, listen, in order to make this work, what we're going to have to do is figure out a way to take some of the money, maybe from next year, and bring it to this year. I just think that's really where he's at. And again, I know that a lot of Steeler fans are upset with Cam Heyward. They're upset. They think that he's, being greedy or that he's not being a leader. I don't think that that's the case at all. I mean, when you're at the end of your career and you feel like you've had a great career and you know that it could end tomorrow, well, guess what you do? You basically try to squeeze every dime you can. And once that happens, fans usually get upset about it. But I really believe that Cam Heyward's going to play this weekend. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think he's the kind of guy that wants to be out there. I just think he's also a kind of guy who wants to make sure he gets his value. And again, it's a lot different now. from the standpoint of, I think that it is really important to go through it all and figure it out. And I think they will. I think they'll come to some sort of resolution. I expect there to be some sort of modification of his contract where everyone can live with it. By the way, Game Time mobile app specializes in last-minute tickets to sports events, concerts, and theater performances. It's one of those things where if you want to get your tickets late, if you want to get whatever you need, go head out, download the app, and make sure that you get the Game Time app, and it gives you an opportunity to get a whole lot more when it comes to that. So it is just going to be something you want to do. And I would tell you that Game Time is your ticket, if you want a ticket, in order to be able to go out and get all of the ads that you need to get, all of the tickets that you need to get. You can also share your authentic experiences using the Game Time app to hype your audience for sports season. Create a video promoting Game Time as your go-to app for all tickets by highlighting the unique features and great deals. Now, here's a couple things that are important. With the Game Time brand, you get the best prices, it's easy to use, and you get access to some of the most amazing life experiences. A couple of things that are really different about the Game Time app: the fees are included. In other words, you're not going to say, well, I want these tickets for $25 each. Two of them makes $50, and then when you go to the checkout, the tickets are $85 because of all the other fees. Nope, none of that. Whatever the price is, the fees are included. That's the one that goes, that's the one probably that's the most important of them all. The other thing is you can pick out a section. You get a little bit of a discount if you just pick out the section and let Game Time pick the seats. You favorite your teams. So the teams that you want, or even the concerts that you want, or whatever. You favorite them. You get access to the tickets before everybody else. You get good seat. You can go get good panoramic views to make sure that the seats that you're buying are the seats that you want. Last minute deals, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket guarantee. Download the Game Time app and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So there you have it. You want to do it, and you want to do it better. Do it at Game Time. Download the app today. Tell them I sent you. Here is what we would go with next. Mike Tomlin was asked about who's the second receiver, whether it's Calvin Austin, whether it's Roman Wilson. And I think one of the things that's very telling to me, is that he downplayed the idea that they need a second receiver. And he basically pointed to Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth and said, we've got other playmakers. We don't necessarily, by the way, Game Time, the promo code for Game Time is PG Sports. That's PG Sports. So go to Game Time, download the app, PG SPORTS, PG Sports. So there you have it. It is going to be really, really good for you if you're somebody that wants last minute tickets and everything else. Now, I thought it was really interesting that he downplayed the idea of a second receiver. I think that's really something that you look at, and it kind of tells you where they're at. They have consistently done this, by the way. And they've been consistently outlooking for a second receiver. And so because of that, you put 2 and 2 together and you kind of realize this. Well, guess what? They're not feeling great about their receiving situation. They're just not. And in fact, they're hoping that it's going to work out where one of these guys they have behind DK Metcalf is going to pan out and turn into, a sort of a second player who is actually playing at a really high level. That's what I would tell you, is going on right now when it comes to the Steelers and Calvin Austin. But he was asked point blank about Calvin Austin and basically just said, well, I think one of the biggest things that is important is that, we have a lot of other weapons who aren't necessarily receivers. It's great, but I don't know that works. I think you need to have somebody out there to help DK Metcalf. Especially a week like this where you're going against maybe, one of the 2, 3 best corners in football in Sauce Gardner. I think it's important, really, really important to be able to get your other guys loose and free. And so to me, that's where we're at, if you ask me. They need to go get another receiver. There's just not that many guys out there. They know it. And they're kind of going through it and going for it. So to me, I feel like, it's important now for the Steelers to figure out how they're going to move the ball passing. And I know Aaron Rodgers is a good player. One of the interesting storylines this week, of course, is Aaron Rodgers going back to New York. I don't know that it'll be that significant, but it'll be emotional for him, I'm sure. And I think that's what is going to be one of those things where it's going to be, a storyline that I think once the game begins probably doesn't matter. And, Aaron Rodgers obviously played with the Jets. It was kind of a disaster. I think he probably gets a little too much blame for what went on up there, especially when you look at basically the fact that down the stretch he played really well. In the last 10 games, he had 18 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So it wasn't necessarily his fault that the Jets were bad. They fired a coach, and then they had a hard time, because the guy they replaced him with really had never been a head coach, and it was clear he made some mistakes and didn't kind of know what he was doing on game day. It's hard when you have an interim coach. It's almost like a substitute teacher. I know that New York fans will probably be rough on Aaron Rodgers, but again, I think once the game begins, nobody's going to care. The other part of that that's interesting is, of course, that the Steelers will be playing against Justin Fields. I don't get the impression that Steeler fans care that much. I think there were some Steeler fans who wanted Justin Fields back. There were some Steeler fans who, were indifferent to it. There were some who wanted to get rid of him. Either way, I don't know that that's going to be that big of a deal once the game begins. But I know that it helps lead up to, hyping this up or whatever. So to me, it's like these storylines, again, once the game begins, we can start talking about football again. We're to the point now in the offseason where, Mike Tomlin had his first press conference this week. He didn't say anything different than he said all summer long, really. There's the depth chart that come out, but did we really need a depth chart to know who's playing and who's starting and who's doing what? But once the games begin, we can start really doing something. And that's what I would tell you, I think is going to happen. But again, I think once the games begin, all these storylines go out the window and we start talking about football. And I, for one, really kind of can't wait for that, to be honest. Because it's just, to me, it's so important when you think about it. It's just so important that the Steelers get off to a good start and play well. Because if they don't, then there's going to be a lot of negative. I think that this year we have the least amount of tolerance, I think, for for the things that are going on in terms of if the Steelers don't win this year, because it's been so long since they won a playoff game, that really I think the fans will turn quickly if they don't play well. Are you having trouble finding the right people to hire? Tired of sorting through endless resumes? Well, future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter, latest tools, features help speeding up finding the right people for your roles. So you save valuable time, and now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect qualified candidates in minutes. See a candidate you're really interested in, you can unlock their contact with info instantly. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Now then, I think that the one last thing that is really kind of important, I think, that happened over the weekend, really, is the Steelers locked up Jaylen Warren for a couple more years. I mean, they got him at a pretty good price, obviously. And I think because of that, it's not that big of a deal. But it's kind of interesting, isn't it? It kind of tells you what they think of him. Because to me, I look at Jaylen Warren and say he's kind of a guy who's probably sort of a dime a dozen, isn't he? I mean, they got him, sort of off the scrap heap. So I'm just saying, why are you so interested in locking him up for a couple more years? That tells me they think he's really good. They think he's a guy who is actually much better, right, than just an undrafted free agent. And so he'll probably be their featured back. My only question is, what happens if he doesn't play very well this year? See, he's the kind of guy that they could have signed later and probably it would have been fine. I guess the risk is, what if he has a 2,000-yard season? Well, if he has a 2,000-yard season, you're probably winning a lot of games and winning in the playoffs and everything else. So you don't mind paying some bonuses or paying bigger contracts. That's the big thing there. But I kind of felt like they could have waited to sign him, and they decided not to. So I just don't know why it was necessary to lock him up. Unless they thought that maybe he's going to have a huge year this year, and they didn't, if they get him now, they basically get him for a discount. He's the kind of guy I think is replaceable. So that's my thoughts on that, but we'll see. And they also have Caleb Johnson waiting in the wings anyway. So it's just going to be important for them to know that, hey, if he doesn't perform, now you've kind of got him for, and you're overpaying him. If he does, then you probably got him for a discount. Pirates play at home tonight. Believe it or not, Pirates are still playing. I know a lot of people are like, no way. It is Carmen Majinski against Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw is not the Clayton Kershaw of old, but he's still Clayton Kershaw, and he's still a guy who knows how to pitch and still a guy that is not horrible. In fact, if you look at his numbers, he has, 17 starts. He is 9-2. His ERA is, where is it at? Here we go. 3.06. So, 17 starts, 58 strikeouts. So a little bit down from what it was. Still has a really good whip, 1.15. He's still Clayton Kershaw. He'll go against Carmen Majinski. If you go to the FanDuel app, look it up on the FanDuel app. You can get the Dodgers, you can get the Pirates for plus 145. That means you bet 100, you get $145 if they win. If you're going to bet on Clayton Kershaw, you're going to have to lay $175 to win 100. That's a lot of juice. Go to the FanDuel app, download it. You can do parlays. You can do all kinds of other great stuff. You can bet just about any way you want to bet. At any rate, we will be back. And, by the way, I guess I would be remiss. I would be remiss if I said this. The Bill Belichick era did not get off to a really good start, but here's the thing. Anybody that thought they were going to get off to a good start isn't paying attention. North Carolina wasn't any good. I think he had 70 new players. It's going to take at least a year. I think they're going to be 4-8 or something like that. They're just not going to be very good. So it's going to be interesting. But we're going to see, whether or not he even sticks around long enough to get it done. So anyway, we're going to continue talking about the Steelers all week leading up to their big game. On Sunday, the opener, we have football. Until then, enjoy your night. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.